Alright guys, on today's episode of RiverRatLabs, we're going to be talking about how to determine what jig size to throw for your swim jigs, bladed jigs, and flipping jigs. Let's get into it. Alright guys, the first technique we're going to be talking about by determining weight size is flipping jigs. You know, flipping jigs, it's kind of a versatile term. You know, I call them casting jigs, skipping jigs, pitching jigs, flipping jigs, that kind of style. You know, the archy head kind of style jig head like this one right here. This is the Outcast Tackle Cage Fighter. This is tungsten along with the Stealth Fighter. Those are tungsten. Those are our jig of choice, are those, but really any jig work for this situation. But yeah, so really the two main sizes are the 3/8 ounce and the 1/2 ounce. Those are the two, you know, tried and true sizes when flipping a jig. Really depends on kind of what kind of, you know, depth you're fishing in and water clarity, all these different factors. Yeah, let's dive into depth. You know, depth is probably the main one that I'm looking for when I'm fishing a jig. You know, anything under 2 feet, you know, when I'm skipping shallow docks where I want it to kind of fall really slow right in front of it, stay in the strike zone for a longer time in, you know, when it's falling down. Because if you think about it, you know, you got a 3/8 ounce that's falling down here, this speed, and a 1/2 ounce that's going like this. So this one falls way quicker. You know, the 1/2 ounce can trigger a reaction strike under a dock. You know, the 3/8 ounce just kind of meanders down there and gets down there, especially with like a craw trailer, like an adrenaline craw from X-Zone. You know, the kickers are really kicking. It really keeps the bait floating for a longer time, if that makes sense. So, you know, it really depends on the shallow water. You know, if I'm casting a jig, you know, flipping reeds, flipping pads in the shallow water, most of the time I'm going with a 3/8 ounce in the springtime because there's, you know, one, the weeds aren't as thick yet. Normally I'm fishing shallower docks, you know, not as deeper docks as like in the summertime. And just all in all, you know, flipping trees and all that kind of stuff, I'm normally fishing pretty shallow. So I always like to go with a 3/8 ounce. You know, I pair that up with a good kicking bait too, so it's a really slow falling bait. But yeah, it's just kind of how I like to fish jigs in the spring. You know, once you get into more summertime and, you know, maybe a little deeper water you're fishing, you know, whether you're flipping deep trees, flipping deep docks, you know, grass lines, or flipping deep, that's when you go to your 1/2 ounce, you know. The 1/2 ounce is just, the 1/2 ounce is more versatile because you can fish it shallow and deep. But really, in the summertime, I'm going with the 1/2 ounce, you know, thicker weeds. You know, the docks are a little bit deeper, just more stuff under the docks to get through. That's why we're going towards the 1/2 ounce. Also, I think the 1/2 ounce is a little easier to skip versus the 3/8 ounce. That's kind of just comes with skipping as well. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, what I use for flipping jigs and casting jigs. That's how I determine my weight size. You know, just all those different factors kind of, you know, really depth is the most important thing, and what time of the year and the kind of structure you're fishing. That's the most important in determining a flipping jig, casting jig, or pitching jig size. So yeah, that's kind of covers that. Now let's get into the swim jigs. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about swim jigs. Swim jigs, it is really two sizes. You have the 1/4 ounce swim jig and the 3/8 ounce. You know, I like to use the Outcast Tackle Heavy Cover swim jig here. You know, that's just my swim jig of choice. Really good durability and perfect weed guard. Weed guard's a big thing in the swim jig too. So yeah, Outcast Tackles are what we use for all of our jigs. But yeah, go check those guys out. They are an awesome company. And yeah, just overall love all their jigs. You know, just use them tried and true day in, day out. But yeah, so with the swim jigs, you know, really there's two main sizes. You have the 1/4 ounce and 3/8 ounce swim jig. Really, when I'm fishing less than 3 feet, I'm going towards the 1/4 ounce. A lot of time in the springtime, the fish will get really shallow on lily pad fields where the roots are coming up. And, you know, if you watch our other channel, River Rats, you'll see I'm fishing a swim jig a lot around those root holes and just lily pad areas where I can covering water with it. And that's why I'm going towards more of the 1/4 ounce, because it stays up in the water column. I can fish a little slower because it is, you know, it stays up, so I can slow it down. I can really pick apart these areas with it. You know, versus a 3/8 ounce, you know, I'm really trying to get, you know, I'm bombing casts out there. I'm going through weeds more, like in the springtime. I'm mostly going towards the 1/4 ounce because there's not as much weeds to get through, and it's just overall more efficient in the springtime. But you know, like when the grass comes up in the summertime, I'll go towards that 3/8 ounce because I want to barrel through the grass, barrel through the pads, all that kind of stuff. And just, you know, maybe you're fishing a little deeper with the swim jig in the summer too, you know, 4 to 6 feet. That's when I'll go towards the 3/8 ounce. But yeah, those are the only situations I'll do with the swim jig is when I'm fishing ultra shallow or when I want to slow down with the swim jig. I'm going for the 1/4 ounce versus, you know, when I'm trying to speed up a little bit but stay high in the water column, or I'm trying to get through stuff, I go towards the 3/8 ounce swim jig. And that kind of depends with the line size too as well. Same with the flipping jig. Not as much with the flipping jig, but definitely the swim jig. You know, if you have braid versus fluorocarbon, you can really keep up a jig. Fluorocarbon sinks, obviously, braid floats. So that kind of depends too with the jig size. I might use fluorocarbon for my swim jig, so I mostly it's all about the jig size, not so much about the line. But yeah, that's kind of swim jig fishing in the weight size in a nutshell. Now let's get into our last topic, which is bladed jigs. Alright guys, so our last topic we're talking about is bladed jig sizes. You know, really a bladed jig is such a versatile bait, whether it's a 1/2 ounce or a 3/8 ounce. You know, really I'm using this in the springtime, summertime, and the fall. So all 3 seasons I'll use this bait. Yeah, and I can kind of substitute this with the swim jig as well. So yeah, the bladed jig, the size is, it's kind of challenging. You know, most of the people use the standard chatterbait, like everyone knows it, is the evergreen jackhammer. That's the one I have right here. They are tungsten heads, so they're a little bit smaller. Don't, you know, catch as much water coming down. So yeah, so, you know, really when I'm determining a chatterbait weight size, it all depends on what kind of grass I'm fishing, whether I'm fishing open water or wood. And really the major part is how deep I'm fishing. With a 3/8 ounce, I can probably get to about 2 to 5 feet when I can slow it down and work at the pace that I want to work it. And, you know, and then when I go to the 1/2 ounce, it's normally 4 to 8 feet is where I can cover, you know, water. And mostly I'm fishing this in grass. So, you know, if the grass is thick and I want to try to get through the grass, snap through it, I'll go towards the 1/2 ounce. But when the grass is not as thick and I'm fishing a little bit shallower, I'll go towards the 3/8 ounce. That again depends on line size a lot. I use 17 pound. That's kind of the standard. You know, 15 to 20. You know, you can really, it kind of doesn't really matter between those. But yeah, so, you know, 3/8 ounce, I'm fishing shallow. I'm fishing sparser weeds, just more of a really shallow water chatterbait. 1/2 ounce is way more versatile. You can fish a 1/2 ounce shallow. You just kind of have to work a little quicker, snap it out of grass more. But you can also fish it deep. Versus a 3/8 ounce, you can't really fish deep. So if I had to pick one chatterbait to use, I would go with the 1/2 ounce. It's just way more versatile. I really didn't use a 3/8 ounce chatterbait till last year. I figured out how to use for it up shallow, and I've, you know, built off that pattern. But really, 1/2 ounce would get you basically 90% of the places. So yeah, that kind of wraps up, you know, jig fishing weight sizes. If you kind of like this kind of style where we dive more into depth on certain techniques, maybe this was very informal for some of you guys. For some of you beginners, this is a really good video for you guys. So yeah, make sure you're checking our other channel at the River Rats. We're doing all types of tournament videos, all that kind of stuff on there. And yeah, thank you guys for watching today's episode. Hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you on the next breakdown. Peace.